Alaska, an amazing place. Stay tuned.
Ever since I was a boy, I've been fascinated with God's creation. I'm traveling the planet to tell His story about His world. I'm Jim Scudder Jr. Come with me on another exciting adventure in grace.
Today we're going to take you to Alaska again. Last week we talked about Alaska, the creation, the beautiful scenery here on this magnificent cruise ship, the Amsterdam, Holland America's flagship cruise liner. I love going on a ship because I can see the creation, I can see the ocean. I love the sea, I love the salt water. And here on the back of a cruise ship, it's my favorite place to stand because you get to see the beautiful turquoise water. That's the prop wash of a massive ship like we're on today. And this ship isn't even one of the big ones. This is considered a mid-sized ship these days. But Alaska is a marvelous place, a place that we will be able to see scenery. We're gonna be able to see wildlife. We're gonna take you on some adventures. And we're also gonna talk about creation. I think you're gonna enjoy this show so much as we learn more about God's beauty, His genius, and His wonderful creation.
Last time on InGrace, our elegant Holland America cruise ship, Amsterdam, took us from Seattle to Ketchikan to the Tracy Arm Fjord. We saw amazing beauty everywhere we looked. With our eyes, we saw whales and bears and eagles. We had adventures on a float plane and a dog cart. And today, we're still in port in Alaska's capital, Juneau, the only U.S. state capital inaccessible by road. I actually think they're onto something here. Keep the politicians isolated. I love fishing, so I couldn't pass up an invitation from an InGrace friend to go halibut fishing. I may have been a little too confident in a big catch.
We're gonna go slay, and I mean slay, the halibut. Let's do it.
We did finally get out to our fishing spot, and immediately we put down 350 feet down our bait and started jigging, much like walleye, except you had like a 3-pound weight, it seemed. And we caught a halibut.
Halibut. Hey, there we go.
Got it into the boat. It took a long time to reel in 350 feet of line, and we decided at that point as we got in the boat, it was kind of small. Everybody was getting bites, so it was like, okay, well, we're gonna throw that one back. That was the last halibut that we caught. We did happen to catch some flounder.
We had a lot of bites, we had a lot of bait stolen. I had one on for a while, but alas, no halibut to take home.
Saw a whale spout, the back of a whale come up and then the tail go down, so we ran over there, waited a few minutes, but then decided to get to fishing because we were limited on time. But just seeing that up close and being able to even just chase down a whale is awesome. Just a cool experience.
We feel like we were really good sportsmen today because all the fish that we caught, we left in the ocean. But we had a great time. Captain Kevin's awesome captain. He's got the best beard in Alaska.
Well, at least we didn't have to clean fish. Juneau was a fun stop, and as we departed, we were looking forward to our final place in Alaska before we'd have to turn south for home. While steaming towards Skagway, I had a chance to hang out with our creation speaker, Bruce Malone. Bruce was a scientific researcher for Dow Chemical for 30 years. He has a degree in chemical engineering and is responsible for key innovations, which have resulted in 18 patents. I asked him about how animals and humans would have been able to get from Noah's Ark in Turkey to eventually populate the Americas.
So Bruce, in Alaska, we see a couple of things. We see the ice glaciers. We also see the population of native people that were here for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Does a reading of the Bible, an understanding of the flood and of the Tower of Babel kind of give us some insight into the population?
Well, it gives us an absolute key to understanding why are these people here. You see, we need to go back to what God has told us. Everybody spread out from Noah, his family, and then the Tower of Babel. But how? How did they get over here? As we look at Alaska, Siberia, it's just a barren ice land, and there's a huge ocean. But following the flood of Noah, enormous amounts of water evaporated to form the ice sheets.
So a lot of evaporation, a lot of snow.
Yep.
But that would also lower the oceans.
Exactly.
And create a land bridge where the oceans are.
There was a land bridge allowing migration of very intelligent people into North America.
How much lower would the oceans have been during that time
Most experts acknowledge they would be at least 200 foot lower. All the oceans of the world, 200
That's
foot of water.
incredible.
Glaciers miles thick, allowing that land surface for migration into North America.
I know also you've done some research onto the Delaware tribe, and they have a story that really parallels incredibly with what the Bible says.
It is stunning. It's called the Wolum Olum. There's actually a book published called The Red Record, based on a linguistic expert from the 1800s that went into their oral tradition. They actually have a record of creation, the flood, the fall, and then the spreading out of people during a period of enormous ice and snow of that day. It exactly parallels what we find, a migration of people across the Pacific Northwest into North America during an extremely cold period of Earth history.
If you love adventure and you love God's creation, then you need to get this incredible video, Alaska, Amazing Creation. When you give a gift of any amount to InGrace, more people hear about the gospel of grace, and let me thank you by sending you this awesome adventure DVD. If your gift is $25 or more, let me also send you a walk through creation with Ken Ham. I'd love to hear from you right now.
Call 800-78-GRACE or go online to ingrace.tv and receive this special offer. The number is 800-78-GRACE or visit ingrace.tv.
It's a beautiful place to stand to
I
see
love the tail of
the tail of the ship.
All the trail of the water. Look how far back it stays mixed up. That's amazing.
And I love the color of the water. It's so beautiful.
I wore my shirt to match.
Yeah, it looks like it. But if you fall in, we're never going to find you. There were a lot of creatures that died in the Ice Age, and they're finding these woolly mammoths up in ice sheets, and they were frozen, and some of them are preserved incredibly well.
The upper area of Siberia, they found millions of woolly mammoth buried in the permafrost. The intriguing thing, that's absolute mystery to modern scientists, is they find semi-tropical vegetation, stuff that would grow in Florida, Alabama, in the stomach of these animals that died in Siberia. Now, how does that happen?
Well, that would be incredibly hard to explain unless we have a proper understanding of the aftermath of the flood.
Well, when you apply a biblical framework to things, they become much clearer. It's when you leave the Bible out, they're a mystery. You see, after the flood, the oceans, as I mentioned, were much warmer. Lots of volcanism, lots of land movement, even the Arctic Ocean. So along the coastline, even hundreds of miles inland, there was a microclimate, not just for a few years, but for hundreds of years following the flood.
Because of the warmth of the
Warm
ocean.
water.
Even today, you have microclimates, Southeast Alaska, British Columbia, where you don't get a lot of snow because you have the warmth of the ocean. Now, if you warm that ocean up a lot more, you're going to have subtropical plants growing in these places.
In the Arctic, it was warm. Now, because the oceans are so large, it wouldn't just take a few years for the entire ocean, thousands of feet deep, to cool down.
You're talking about hundreds of
We're
years
talking
for all this to happen.
hundreds of years following the flood of Noah.
And just like the native population would have been probably coming across the ocean's lower, so you have a land bridge, so would the animals have been coming across there. Woolly mammoths and other creatures would have been in that location.
Came out of Noah's Ark.
And you have the ice sheets forming.
Heading
and
to
you
the
have
north.
all of a sudden the ocean's cooling, and then suddenly the oceans freeze.
Well, at some point, the evaporation is cooling the overall oceans, coming down as ice in the north, more wet environment, rain into the equatorial regions. building up, but that's cooling the oceans. At some point, the oceans cool and cool and cool. You formed ice sheets to the south of these huge herds of mammoths. The oceans freeze over.
Now they're trapped.
At this point, you could get a 50, 70 degree temperature drop overnight. You had a rapid freezing of an entire species of animals, and they subsequently went extinct.
But without the flood, you have no mechanism to warm the oceans. So you really don't have an answer unless you believe the Bible for the Ice Age as we have known it.
The flood of Noah that the Bible tells us about was a worldwide event. Never forget that. It affected this entire planet, and it guaranteed an enormous global ice age after the flood. God specifically told us in his very first command to Adam and Eve, take dominion over creation. Well, that means to study it, understand it, and control it, because by doing so, we literally will know he exists. Evolution pretends he doesn't. It gives us this excuse to ignore God.
We finally arrived in Skagway, a small town born from the rush for gold. Karen and I wanted to take the famous White Pass train and also try to pan for gold ourselves. Others in our group were going on a rafting excursion. As in other towns that we stopped in, shopping can be a full-time shore excursion.
One of the things that people love to do on cruises is shop. And here in Skagway, there's plenty of shopping to do. My problem is my wife went into this jewelry store and she's still in there, so pray for me.
So we took a river rafting float trip. We took a ferry to Haines from Skagway. So that was a beautiful run down this very narrow fjord. And we got to see these gorgeous waterfalls that are coming down from about 3,000 feet. So even the trip there was great. We got into Haines, got on a bus, and they drove us 15 miles inland.
We ended up getting to the location where we got on the raft. It was a fun experience, you know, them instructing us, here's how to not tip the raft over when you get in. Going through a river in the middle of Alaska was just really, really fun. And just getting to look at the eagles was really quite neat, getting to hear facts about them and just hearing the intricacy of just one of God's creations.
The scenery was also just really cool because you could see all the mountains there and the clouds that were getting trapped in there.
This is the White Pass Railroad. Beautiful old train. It's going to take us from up here in Fraser. We're at the top of the White Pass, back down through the White Pass into the town of Skagway. A lot of history is along this route. The Klondike Gold Rush, many people trying to find gold, trying to find treasure. They found adventure. Many lost their lives, but it is beautiful, and I hope to show you some really incredible scenery of God's creation. This is really fun. You can hear the cranking of the rails. It's a small gauge train. The scenery is incredible on both sides of the track.
Then we went panning for gold, which I had a hard time doing the panning. Couldn't quite figure it out, and Jim was an expert because he had done it before.
Brings you back in time, and you can get a bag of pay dirt that they got from Gold Rich area here in Skagway. They didn't find any gold, but they brought this in, and each pan has gold. So what you've got to do is, keep working it around so get all the gold concentrated in one area, and then you do the swirls. And there's gold. So we're not getting rich. And then what we'll do is take this inside, and they'll dry it, and they'll weigh it, and then we will sell it and pay for the cruise.
3.5 grains of gold. How much do you think that's worth?
All right, do we have anyone left?
Take a
Right
guess.
here? Would you like to come up this way?
How much do you think that is in dollars? $10. $30.91. Yeah!
Leaving Skagway was bittersweet. as we would be also leaving Alaska to head for home. But that time at sea gave us a chance to have a church service on the main stage in the ship, as well as time to sit down with Bruce Malone and talk about an incredible little migratory bird.
I think God likes to show off. There's a bird native to Alaska called the bar-tailed godwit. The amazing thing about this bird is it has to migrate from its summer feeding grounds to its winter feeding grounds in New Zealand. It is a 7,125-mile trip over open ocean with no place to land.
Is that the farthest migration?
It is the farthest migration.
Wow. So we're saying from Alaska to New Zealand.
To New Zealand, almost down by Australia. So across the globe, from one hemisphere to the other, almost from the top to the bottom of the earth. Now, aside from the fact, how does it know to leave Alaska and pinpoint a small location in one country, and it goes back to the same spot every year? How does it get there? How does it fly that far without ever landing? It takes between 5 and 7 days. It has to travel, if it takes 5 days, on average of right around 100 miles an hour, flying over open
the whole
ocean,
time.
the whole way, without ever stopping. Now that takes an enormous amount of energy, enormous calorie intake. So before it leaves, it starts to gorge itself. It eats and eats and eats.
Kind of like what we've been doing on this cruise.
Exactly. If it was like a normal bird, it would look like the Goodyear blimp, and it would not fly very well, and there's no way it could make the journey. So it produces a special kind of fat. Fat stores energy that has a very low water content. No other bird does this. But it still has to hold so much fat that it would not fly efficiently. So right those last few days, its internal organs start to shrivel. Its liver, its kidneys, its stomach, its intestines, they all shrivel up to make room for the fat. So instead of looking like a blimp, it re-streamlines itself. And then it flies continuously without ever stopping. If it didn't have enough energy, it would crash and burn into the ocean. Dead animal, no more godwits. God designed every bit of it. It designed its ability to make the fat, its desire to migrate, its knowledge of how to migrate, its shriveling of its organs. All of it has to be there or nothing works.
So at the same time, everything has to be in place.
Correct.
Or we don't have the godwit.
The next generation would be dead. So you can't just have a piece of an animal, a piece of creation. All the parts have to fit together. They all have to be there. Evolution can't explain this because it's a piecemeal bit of change at a time over eons of time. It could never make this journey. One of those things God does so we will know He exists and He is the creator.
And obviously, intelligence had to have created that. And we say, the Bible says it clearly, that the Lord Jesus, the creator, the sustainer, and the savior of all who will receive by faith His gift of eternal life.
The most phenomenal concept of all, the God who made this universe that's so large we can't even intellectually conceive of the distances we're talking about, would become part of that creation, would become a human being to take the penalty we deserve, to have died in our place. That's the most phenomenal concept of all.
Alaska, what a beautiful place. A place that will inspire you, a place that will bring you hopefully back to see it again and again. I love to see God's creation, God's beauty, but I also want to never neglect to tell you not only is He the creator, but more importantly, He's the savior. He is the one that sent out a rescue plan. Can you imagine if this mighty ship had a problem and started taking on water? There's going to be lifeboats, but those lifeboats will only get you so far. We need a rescue. We need somebody to come and help us. Well, God has initiated that rescue plan. He has sent His only Son, His name is Jesus, to this earth. The very God became a man, but He never sinned. See, we're sinners. We've fallen short of the glory of God. And many of the Alaskan towns back in the day, there were a lot of brothels and saloons. It was a really wild and lawless place. We have all fallen short of the glory of God. You say, well, I would never get involved with stuff like that. Have you ever lied? Have you ever cheated? Have you ever not told the full truth? We're all sinners. We're all fallen short of the glory of God. We need a Savior. And Jesus is the one that came to die for our sins on a cross. Let me show you this. This is you and me. This is all of our sins. We have sinned. We have fallen short of the glory of God. That's what the Bible says. But there's good news, and that is Jesus had no sin, and he became sin for us on the cross. And anyone who simply believes in him, to trust in him, has eternal life. And once you put your trust in the Lord Jesus Christ, you're saved. No matter what happens to you, you will spend eternity with God in heaven because he paid the debt for your sin, and you've received that as a gift, and you have something called eternal life. Alaska's beautiful. It's interesting. The history's great. It's still wild. But more important than Alaska and beauty is to know Jesus. That's where you'll find real adventure and real fulfillment and purpose in your life. Trust in the Lord Jesus Christ, and thou shalt be saved.
If you love adventure and you love God's creation, then you need to get this incredible video, Alaska, Amazing Creation. When you give a gift of any amount to InGrace, more people hear about the gospel of grace, and let me thank you by sending you this awesome adventure DVD. If your gift is $25 or more, let me also send you a walk through creation with Ken Ham. I'd love to hear from you right now.
Call 800-78-GRACE or go online to InGrace.tv and receive this special offer. The number is 800-78-GRACE or visit InGrace.tv. Join us next week as Jim Scudder Jr. travels to Alaska to search for treasures in the snow.
We are in the capital of dog sledding in the world.
It was interesting to see how they team them up. You know, they have the lead dog, the wheel dog, the team dog.
There's some people that God wants to actually lead, but that leader has to be focused and can't ever slack.
I mean, each dog had a certain quality. And so all of these dogs working in concert accomplish incredible things.
Record every single InGrace episode. You will be so blessed as we learn all about God's world and God's Word. InGrace is a viewer-supported ministry. Thank you for your prayers and gifts.